Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often. He'll wipe my tears. Only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember.
Welcome to the Message Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today in the studio we have a gentleman with 8 years sober. He's had a treatment background, working in treatment. He worked with Adam for a year, and most recently has found his home in the church, in his faith.
Yeah.
And he's on the show today to share his experience with us. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
How you doing?
So, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I had a little hour and a half drive out here, but
Oh, really?
Yeah.
it's a drive
Thank you,
that
bro.
I'm in Long Beach now, but so I worked in Lake Arrowhead with Adam for a year, and during that time, about a few months in, I got back together with the woman who's now my wife, and her son down there, and so I was commuting every weekend
From
Lake
Long Beach?
Arrowhead to Long Beach. Yeah, so I'd spend
Wow.
4 days in Lake Arrowhead and 3 days in Long Beach. So I did that drive
No.
a million times. It was a lot of time in the car, but yeah.
Well,
it
we
was a
thank
good
you for
time.
taking the drive. And actually, we had somebody else scheduled to do a podcast today, and we had a cancellation. And so, this really worked. So we really appreciate it. And Chris,
good.
I'm really excited to have you on because I highly respect you. We started working. You actually trained me, right, at my job, and so me and you for the first 3 months, every shift that we worked, it was together, and I worked under you.
Yep.
And so you were running the shift, and then you kind of had to get to a place in the decision who's going to run the shift now, right? And obviously I fucking worked my fucking ass off to earn that because I knew. It's crazy because Chris reminded me I was going through a lot then, bro. I was. I don't know if you remember this, but I was sleeping on my sister's floor for a while because I had lost my home due to a relationship and all that stuff. And so working at that job was like a Hail Mary for me. I needed to do something to make sure that I got enough income to provide for my family. Yeah. And but getting to know you, first glance, we're always judgmental, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this fucking dude. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? But then we ended up becoming really close. I really got to understand who you are as a man, right, and the principles that you live by, and I'm really grateful that we got to cross paths, bro. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm really excited about this podcast because I have a deep admiration for you, and I know you're gonna get into some stuff, so I'm not gonna share everything, but where you're at in your life, bro. Yeah, it's super dope, bro, and I love you and I appreciate you.
I love you too, man. Actually, Adam was we got married in the height of COVID, and we only invited family, and we told each other we'd only invite one friend each, and Adam was my friend.
Yeah,
that I invited, and my wife invited one of her friends, and drove all the way down to Mission Viejo for it, so I appreciated that.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
You said something. It was cool, dude. It was cool.
Yeah.
And again, I show up and I'm judgmental. Oh my God. And then I end up talking to this whole family, bro. Chilling with this whole family the whole time, And I think I was talking to your sister and your mom and a few other people, but it was cool, bro. Yeah. I felt like I was super underdressed, but that's okay.
You weren't.
Did you go to the wedding in a pro club?
No, I had a button up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had a button up.
Yeah, long sleeve button up. I remember exactly what I was wearing. Yeah.
I was wearing a button up in khakis. I wasn't even wearing a suit.
Yeah, I don't know if I was wearing khakis. I might have been wearing Levi's, but that's fine. But yeah. So I went to his wedding. His wife, I love his wife too. His wife's super amazing, super down to earth, super a big godly woman, and just your guys' relationship is super inspiring. And we talked about this. It won't come out to after this podcast, but we talk relationships are work, right? And so to be in a relationship with anybody for X amount of years, right, and then getting married, all that stuff is a testament to who you guys are as people, for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, Chris, let us get to know you a little bit. What was it like for you growing up? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town called Woodinville outside of Seattle. I say little. The town itself was little, but it's kind of at the edge of the suburbia, so it's kind of in that little area. It's a Microsoft area, lots of families from who had parents working for Microsoft there, so it was an affluent community. we were, well, my parents did fine, but compared to the Microsoft people, it was a noticeable socioeconomic difference. So, yeah, growing up, going to elementary school, it was, you know, I never had all the toys that everyone had. And at the time, like looking back, it's like, okay, that doesn't matter. But when you're 8, like,
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
100%.
yeah. So, yeah, and I'm a late bloomer into my, you know, substance abuse problems. Like I was a good student all the way through school, through high school. But I just always had this feeling of not belonging and not, you know, it felt like I didn't have a lot of friends. It's funny when I look back, like I did have friends through like all these stages. It's just something was, like on my end, something wasn't being fulfilled with that. And at first I think it was because, you know, I grew up in a very religious household. You know, we were, you know, in church twice a week. My parents were trying to raise me to love Jesus and follow his commandments, and therefore we were, you know, living differently than most of the people around us. Which is another thing I understand now, but when you're 8, it's not fun and you don't understand it. So I felt, you know, not necessarily belonging. I wanted to, you know, cuss and watch porn and do all this stuff. And so as soon as I was able to start doing those things, I did, you know. And by the grace of God, none of the quote unquote more worldly friends that I found were ever into substances or anything. So I never went that route because, I mean, I was a very influenced by peer pressure kid. Like if I had been, I'm sure I would have tried something. Yeah. But I didn't have my first real drink until my 18th birthday, actually, at a family reunion up in Canada. And my birthday is July 5th. And so, and also, if you know, Canadians, like, they'll celebrate anything. They don't care that July 4th is an American holiday. So we're celebrating July 4th. And and at midnight, I'm turning 18. And so my cousins and aunts take me into the cabin and, you know, pour me a drink for my birthday. And that was my first real drink. And, you know, I didn't even have to get drunk before, you know, I just tasted it and felt that effect and felt that sense of like, okay, now I've arrived. I'm part of the group now. Like, this is something that, you know, and it's not like we didn't have alcohol in the house because we believed it's a sin to drink. My parents just didn't like to drink. We never had alcohol. Like, my grandpa would have a beer every once in a while, but it was like a Bud Light, you know. And I tasted it one time, and it's disgusting. So I didn't want it. But, yeah, I had that first real drink, and, yeah, it was like I had arrived. And I went off to college that fall, and, you know, first night, just found whatever party I could get to and got hammered drunk. The next night, found whatever party I could get to. And I remember that night, it was at a friend who I had gone to high school with, who had graduated a year before me and had gone to the college a year before and had their place. And I had to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, and after I finished up, before I could come out, the door opened, and like a bunch of people walk into the bathroom, and they sit me down on the toilet and hand me a bong. And, you know, I was like raised to believe, I was like, you know, what do you say? Just say no kind of philosophy for drugs, and like drugs kill. So even at 18, I totally thought like weed was like a lethal. I could overdose on it, you know? So I'm like, no, I can't do it. And they're all like convincing me like, oh, it's going to be okay. No, it's all like a lie. Everything's fine. And so, yeah, that's when I had my first, you know, drug, I guess. And yeah, and just hit the ground running from there, you know, all through college and then dropping out of college. And until I went to rehab in 2017, that was, you know, yeah.
So you dropped out of college as a result of your drinking and using?
Yeah. I mean, like technically the reason was, failing classes, but that was because of because of substance abuse, and it's all like intertwined with everything else, right? So, I start drinking and drugging, and freshman year is fine, but sophomore year, I get really depressed. Why? I don't know why I'm depressed. Now, of course, I'm putting a bunch of chemicals into my brain every day, like literally every day.
Yeah.
So, a bunch of alcohol, marijuana, then eventually we graduate to more like cocaine, doing some buying, what's the ADHD drug?
Adderall?
Yes, thank you. Buying Adderall, like if we couldn't find cocaine or whatever. And, just all your party drugs and stuff. But, the first time I had a drink, I felt that sense of arrival and belonging. And then I lost that as I sat there unable to stop drinking and unable to stop smoking weed or getting high or anything, and watching all my friends graduate from college. And I'm sitting here, I can't pass English 101, and just because I can't go to class. I physically cannot get up and go to class. So to make a long story short, I basically ended up dropping out because of just failing all my classes. I lived at home for a while, and
so when did you realize, like when did it become a problem, right? So you show up to the first day of college, you start drinking, like were you in, how many years were you in college?
Off and on for almost 7 years, actually.
Okay, so 7 years. And the whole time, do you feel like it was a problem, or was it like a progressive process of becoming a problem?
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was a problem ever until probably the end of my junior year. But it's one of those things we look back, and I remember even just a few months into college, I had a good friend who was going to college out on the East Coast, and she reached out to me. She wasn't even with me. She was just hearing from, because I went to an in-state school, so there was a lot of people from like our high school and our friend group there. And she was just hearing from those people, like I was loaded every weekend, like Friday and Saturday night every weekend freshman year. And she reached out for concern just a few months into it. So already from the beginning, I was doing it differently than everyone else. But I didn't think I had a problem until my junior year. There was some stuff that went down with a friend where he ended up actually having to go to rehab, and the route that he took to hit his bottom really affected me negatively. Like he was like over at our apartment, and we had to kick him out. And this is in the high desert in Washington, so it's 0 degrees in the winter, and we had to kick him out in the middle of the night. And so he's sleeping in his car in 0 degree weather. And this is one of my best friends. But, we had to go. Like, he was so high on, what was he doing? MDMA laced with, like, meth or something like that. He was messed up. Anyway, and after that, like, it just kind of affected me a lot. And I wasn't doing well in school. I had a lot going on. And I didn't realize that, my alcohol and marijuana abuse had a lot to do with that at the time. But I dropped out. I took a year hiatus. I realized at that time, like marijuana wasn't good for me. Like my personal reaction to it wasn't good because it made me very lethargic. Yeah. Like I wouldn't do anything. I just lost any motivation or care for any sort of ambition that I had. So I quit smoking marijuana. I went back. I ended up getting my ass back to school eventually, and but then I started up on smoking marijuana again. Yeah. So,
when you went home, were you still drinking and using like that?
Yeah. So, there's actually kind of a funny story in here. So I was a music major in college. I played trumpet, and I was very good. And
should have brought it, bro.
Yeah. I actually did start playing again this year. It had been a while, but I hadn't been playing for a bit. So what I did was I didn't just drop out of college. I wanted to have like a plan. So I talked to, so when you're a music major, like I'm a trumpet player. So there's a trumpet professor at the college who's like giving all the private lessons, doing like the trumpet classes, all that. and he's with you your entire time. So you get really close, and we're all away from home. So he's almost like a second father to me.
Right.
And he he saw I wasn't doing well, and so he was on board with me, leaving. But he was like, okay, well, let's do you have to do like a junior recital and then a senior recital to graduate. He's like, let's get your junior recital done, and then you can, take some time off. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do on my time off? So what I did was I reached out to these cruise lines and had auditioned to play trumpet on these cruise ships. So I did my junior recital. I got on the cruise ship. I got a gig on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship doing 4-day and 3-day cruises back to the Bahamas from Florida. And so
that's pretty fucking cool.
yeah, it was a cool gig. So what happened was I was leaving, I believe, on like December 14th or something like that. So right before Christmas. And so my family, and it was like a 3-month contract. So my family,
I could drink for free too. Huh?
no, you had to pay for it at the staff, but it was cheap. It was cheap. Yeah. So my family threw me a Christmas. They gave me presents and everything. And I go on the cruise ship on December 14th. And the first day they have this whole seminar, okay, your staff on the ship, we're not here to party, blah, blah, blah. Don't be getting drunk, blah, blah, blah. By day 7, I'm getting my ass kicked off of this cruise ship for being drunk. I made it 7 days into a 3-month contract, and I got fired and kicked off the ship. Thankfully in Florida, so I didn't have to pay for an international flight back. But then I come back on December 21st, 4 days before Christmas, which my family has already thrown for me and given me presents. So I'm sitting there on Christmas watching my family open all these Christmas presents. Yeah. I'm no longer a part of them. I think my grandma or my mom took pity on me and got me something. And you know what I did on my first night that I got back? I went and got drunk with my friends. I hit up my friends and went to the bar and got drunk. I didn't even realize that was when my dad told me, I think you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I didn't even realize that. But yeah, and then I got a job. But that's when the daily drinking. It didn't matter if it was Friday, Saturday, Tuesday, whatever.
Right.
That's when daily drinking started. Yeah. So I ended up getting back to school about a year later. I didn't make it through there either. But so what happened then? And for the listeners, my higher power now is Jesus Christ. So I do, so that's a big part of my story. So what happened was in March of 2015, I ended up accepting, saying a prayer to God and asking Jesus to come into my life and be my savior. And I said I would never, I'd never get high again. I'd never get drunk again, anything like that. So I didn't for 18 hours. And then I was back to it. And I couldn't stop. But I will say what changed on that day is I never enjoyed it ever again. It's crazy. It's like a switch flipped on that day. Before that, there was times that I enjoyed it. But after that, it was a need at that point. It wasn't oh yeah, let's go, have some fun. I mean, there might be fun nights I would go out to the clubs, but at home by myself, it was never yeah, I'm really excited to get drunk, or yeah, I'm really excited to get high or do some coke. It was
I think that doing it at home alone,
yeah,
that's when the switch changes too.
Yeah.
When it goes from being fun to being a physical dependence on it.
Yeah.
And doing it alone by yourself in the dark.
Yeah.
And it's not fun anymore.
Right. And for me, honestly, I think some of it was a physical dependence. But when I ended up going to rehab, I didn't even detox. I didn't take subs. I didn't even get Valium or anything. It was that spiritual dependence. I don't mean a spiritual dependence on God. I mean in my spirit, when I was sober, I had to be loaded.
Yeah.
And then even if it was just weed, literally anything, right? So I'd go out on the porch and, light up my marijuana pipe and, take a hit. And immediately I'd be like, I hate this. This sucks. I hate being high. I'm never getting high again.
Right.
And then it would wear off, and I would get sober, and be like, this is worse than being high. I got to get high again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was my story. So actually coming into rehab, I had not been a daily drinker. I mean, still drinking multiple times a week, but I wasn't like a morning to night drinker daily, so I didn't need a detox. It was like just supplementing. Weed was honestly the cheapest thing to make me not sober. Like
Right.
that was it. So, but so I was living at home. My parents set a rule that I wasn't allowed to be high or drunk in the house, or I wasn't allowed to use alcohol or drugs in the house. They didn't set a rule that I couldn't be high or drunk because they didn't want me to like not come home if I was that way. So I would get high on the porch outside, where I would, and then, but yeah, then I was wanting to drink a bit, so I took the truck and I went and parked it next to the water tower, like a block down from my house, and like lived there for like a week, like 2 blocks away from my house, just so that I could like get loaded without the guilt or whatever.
Yeah.
Without the guilt, I mean, the guilt was still massively there,
for sure.
And finally, one of the neighbors called the cops, and the cop comes, rapping on my truck window at 2 a.m, like, what are you doing here? And he's like, show me your ID. So I show him my driver's license. He's like, your address is right there. Like, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I'm just having problems at home. I didn't want to be there. And he's like, okay, we'll go down to the park and ride or something. It's like, okay, fine. So, but by that point, I couldn't be high and I couldn't be sober. So my only other alternative was to be dead, But I had, it's funny. And my Christian friends who haven't, gone through this might not understand, but I was like regretting having a relationship with Jesus at this moment because I could almost feel him or feel God working in my life, but I didn't want him to. I just wanted to die.
Right.
Like I had gotten to the point emotionally, like I hadn't been to jail. I hadn't been homeless. I had spent every day working at Round Table Pizza, driving home, hitting the bars after that, driving home drunk. I remember they had one of the little like speed radar things on my road, so like it would show you how fast you're going to try to keep you under 35 miles an hour. And I would like clock that thing how fast I could get it on this hilly road in the dark, drunk. And I was like drunk.
Yeah.
I'm hitting, maxing that thing out past triple digits on a 35 mile an hour road. And I didn't care. Like I couldn't actively kill myself, but I didn't want to be alive anymore. And I finally got to the point. So, wow. Yeah. It's funny how like even this was in January of 2017. And so it's now been what, 8 years and change. And looking back now, I'm still just putting pieces together on this. And so I was in that truck next to the water tower, just wanting to die and just saying, not even really praying, but just saying to nobody out there. And now I know it's God I was saying it to, like, I need some help. I just want to either have the strength to kill myself because I'm too much of a coward to do so, or I need some sort of divine intervention here. And the cop comes to my window, I think later that night. I end up in if any of you are from the Northwest, I end up in the QFC parking lot in Canyon Park. And I fell asleep there. And then the next thing I know is my dad knocking on the window because he just knew something was wrong.
Right.
And it tracked me on my phone. Back then you had to like call the phone company to do it. There was no Find My iPhone.
Oh, really?
So he I called Sprint and found me, and then came and knocked on my door, opened the door. Because they had been calling and texting me this whole time for like a whole week. This is not the first time I had disappeared too. just making sure I'm alive and all that. And I just get out and it's like, I need some help or something, Dad. And, you know, I was in rehab a week later and, you know, I was sick that whole time, not physically sick, just still spiritually sick. You know, I went to rehab on February 6, 2017. That's my sober date. I now have 8 years. The day before was that Patriots Falcons Super Bowl that was like 28-3 with the big comeback. During halftime, my whole family came over, like my grandparents and all that came over to like say goodbye to me. They knew I was going to rehab the next day. And my way to cope with being around a lot of people was to go get loaded during halftime and come back, and slept through the whole second half, missed the whole thing. Went to rehab the next day and I was talking about it. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, right? But yeah, I mean, God just literally did for me what I couldn't do for myself, right? Yeah. And brought me back to him, brought me into sobriety. I went to Northbound Treatment Center, or Northbound Treatment Services in Newport Beach. It was actually in Costa Mesa, but their address is Newport Beach. And yeah, sober living, started working in treatment, you know, found a church, met a woman, having kids. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a ride.
So like when you got to treatment, what were you scared? This is your first time being in treatment, right?
Yeah, first and only time. Yeah, I had tried to get sober before. I had gone to Marijuana Anonymous because I didn't want to accept that I was an alcoholic. Right. Because alcohol was the first thing I did, and the last thing. Yeah, so
I went to one of those meetings before.
Marijuana?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I went to one. It was out in Orange County.
And, yeah, they have a few there.
There was this guy that I was in treatment with, and that was his downfall. It wreaked havoc on his life, you know.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I would go with him, and I was like, of course, because he was scared to go, and you know, and so we go to it, and it's like a bunch of people still dress like hippies.
Yeah.
They still dress the same. Mm-hmm. They just don't smoke anymore.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. It was different.
It's a nice little group. They have like their own literature and everything.
Very kind people.
Yeah.
They had snacks.
I still have it, actually. I kept it all this time.
They have snacks too.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Well, stoners like munchies. That's cool. I didn't know that Marijuana Anonymous had their own literature. I like that.
It's called Life with Hope. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's I never got rid of the book. I couldn't. It was my first like recovery meeting I went to. The guys are cool. Yeah, same experience as Mike. Anyway, yeah. So coming to treatment, I honestly don't remember what emotions I was feeling. I was in full surrender mode. I was done. I'm so done, and I got on that plane and just came down, and you know, it's all a blur. It was the biggest rainstorm they had in Costa Mesa in years. Like it rained like literally the roofs off the houses, and like for like 8 days. I don't know if you remember that, and they had to redo like all the gutters and whatnot. But anyway, it was I just came down in full surrender, and
that's a blessing that you experienced that.
Yeah.
Surrender your first time.
Yeah.
Like so many of us, for me, like I had a little bit, you know, but as soon as things got better, it just went away.
Yeah.
You know, and then the next time a little more and a little more and a little more until I was completely broken.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And me too. It's just my low points were internal, and so that's one of my things here in sobriety. And we talked a little bit before we started recording about this too. Is that, you know, I feel like a lot of us, and me included, I was like, oh, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not homeless. I'm not losing relationships. I'm not even drinking 24/7. Like I was smoking weed in the mornings and drinking at night. So, you know, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm doing both and managing it. Right. Yeah. I wasn't.
Right.
But, if I can, you know, speak to, you know, anyone out there who's thinking it's, you know, starting to go down a road with a problem, like, you know, get off that road now, because I'm a living testament to, I think we get this thing in our heads, like we have to hit this like bottom. But two things on that. One, you can stop. I mean, I definitely had a bottom. My bottom was just, a suicide, close to a suicide attempt,
Yeah.
It wasn't being in prison for like 8 years. Like I've had friends, I had a client who was in prison for 35 years for murder. That was his bottom. And he came out and got sober in our treatment center. But that doesn't have to be your story, for one. And two, there's always a lower bottom. Like we are really, really good with shovels here in addiction, and we can always find something lower,
And I also think that people look at bottoms, they have a misconception of a bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because what you're talking about a spiritual bottom.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, physical bottoms really don't stop me too much, right? Because I get used to being homeless. I get used to being jobless. I got used to all that shit. But what I didn't get used to was the suicidal ideations.
Yeah.
What I didn't get used to was, like, the godlessness, right? The emptiness, the loveless, like all those less. Like, that's one thing that, like, me and Shane, we were talking the other day. He sent me like a video on TikTok, and it was like some dude like making fun of like when you're high on methamphetamine, you know what I'm saying? and like even that part of it, bro. Like I was mentally fucking ill at the end of my using, and so that's what scares me about relapse, bro. Is I don't want to be mentally fucking ill anymore.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I can't go back to fucking thinking or feeling the way that I was feeling, and so like, and another thing you talked about was like an addict, alcoholic, right? Where it's not like. You don't have to drink and use every day, right, to be considered an addict or an alcoholic,
Right.
bro. You know what I'm saying? You just don't, bro, right? If you have, and this is how I talk to people, right? I tell them, like, if you have periods in your life where you woke up and you said, I'm not going to get loaded today, and you got loaded, that means you're powerless.
Yeah.
Right? If you have consequences, right, like dropping out of school, getting kicked off a fucking cruise boat, right?
Yeah.
like if you have consequences, and regardless of the consequences, you still choose to drink and use the next time that you decide. Even if you stop for a week and say, you know what, I'm done, but then a week later you find a great idea to get loaded again, then that's powerlessness. That's unmanageability, bro.
Yeah.
Right? And unmanageability is deeper than not being able to raise the kids, not being able to pay the bills, not being able to like get a job. Like unmanageability is also the insides.
Yeah.
Right? Like how is my unmanageability with my spirituality, bro? Right? How is it with my mental health? How is it with all that stuff, right? And so you're right. It is important for people to understand that and to know that, bro. You know what I'm saying? We don't all have to fucking crash out all the way to the bottom. You don't got to overdose 1,000 times. You don't have to lose your kids. You don't have to do any of that, bro. And I shared about this last night. But like even like age and how long you've been using, like that shit doesn't matter, bro. No. Like there's times where I've been to treatment, right? And like I would go to media and someone would say, "Oh, I've been getting loaded longer than you've been alive." And so in my head I would think to myself, okay, then maybe I'm not an addict. And I would go back out and I would get loaded again, bro. Just to test it out one more fucking time. So it doesn't matter, bro. Like there's people that get clean at 16.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's
we
people
had
that
our buddy up Lake Arrow, got clean at 19.
Yeah.
After this long time.
Yeah, there's people that get clean at a very young age. There's people that get clean at a very old age. Like none of that stuff really is a good description of what an addict is, bro. Right? And I think, like we shared about this at the beginning of the podcast, but I think that's a big part of what we want to do here is bring so many different stories. For example, like you're a great example of that, right? Shit doesn't always have to be that fucking bad.
Yeah.
Right? And the truth is, like, even though to the outside, right, people might look at your story and be like, it wasn't that bad, but it was bad enough for you, and that's all that matters, bro.
Yeah, and it doesn't, and I'm just so grateful for, God's role and everything in my recovery journey because, having one of the blockades for that was like, okay, well maybe I'm not actually an alcoholic. Like I haven't done all this stuff. So I went to rehab. I told my story, like a brief version of my story in detox, not like in a formal setting, just, talking to everyone. 'Cause we're literally just sitting there smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people telling me like, it's really great to see someone here, like who just doing a lot of weed right before they came, like, because it was a problem for me, at that stage, and I didn't realize it till I was overdosing on, it was heroin mostly back then.
Yeah.
But And that's the other thing too nowadays with the fentanyl too. Like you don't know when you're not coming back. It's a different ball game. But and then also my first time hearing like a formal story in rehab, my buddy shared his story of overdosing on a train, dying, and being brought back. And I walked away from that. When my reaction to that story was my brain saying, "Hey, I want to try heroin. That sounds fun."
You're probably an addict.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm just very grateful. I didn't have to try that to learn that I was
for sure.
addict.
I think for me, there was a few different times in a few different places in the county jail where you'd run into somebody like 57 years old and they're like, dude, you keep doing this, you're going to be 57 in here.
Yeah.
Or people in treatment, like, get it now.
Yeah.
Be grateful you're here now. I've been here 20 times.
Yeah.
And I still had to go 5 times
Yeah.
Yeah.
before I got it. Had to get bad enough. And like you said, your bottom is where you quit digging.
Yeah.
And luckily you quit when you did, you know?
Yeah. And it wasn't, it was hardly me, I got myself there. And the one thing that I did was I did step 3. I turned my will and my life over to the care of God. And, I'll never forget that day with my sponsor, literally getting on our knees in public, like holding hands, saying the 3rd step prayer. I was an AA guy, by the way.
Yeah.
So the AA 3rd step prayer, I don't know if the NA one is different or not.
It is.
The gist of it
Yeah.
is about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have not done recovery perfectly at all. But the general theme of my recovery has been a turn of my will and my life over to the care of God. There are days where I do that a lot better than others, but overall, I've done it. I've done it pretty well. And to steal a line from my friend, now I'm no longer. I still have bad days and bad weeks, maybe even bad months if something real bad happens. But I don't have bad years anymore like we did, before.
Yeah.
We were having bad years, bro.
Yeah, for sure. I like
Years
that,
in a
bro.
row.
Yeah, years in a row for sure. Consecutive, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So like, when you were going to A, did you work all 12 steps?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I worked the 12 steps. And I finished. I did 6 months inpatient rehab because this was before all the reforms happened. I was really lucky to get to rehab back then. And then I went into sober living. I started working in treatment, and then I ended up being in Lake Arrowhead at Serenity Lodge, working up there. That's where I met you, Adam. And then I got my now wife pregnant. We had our second kid. So my son, who's 9, is not my biological son. I met him when he was 3. And we've now gone through the process of adopting him. Yeah. And that took a year and a half, starting in June 2021, right after I moved down. Adopted him in November of 2020. Wait, no. Did I take 2.5 years? Oh, no, we started in June 22, sorry. Yeah, November 2023. Adopted him. I have a daughter. Who's 3 now. And then I actually wasn't communicating with you a whole lot too well, Adam, but we actually have a daughter in heaven now too. She's over a year, and then now we're pregnant with our son, who'll be our 3rd child. So everything's looking healthy with him though. So
Sorry for your loss, bro.
yeah, and like I said, that was a bad month, that month. That was, we had a stillbirth at 25 weeks. But thanks to, setting a framework of putting God first in my life and first in my recovery, of course I had the thought to drink over that.
Yeah,
I'm only a man, right? I don't think that's going to change even with 30 years sober.
I agree.
I'm still going to be looking for excuses because, it's the cliche, but it's true. My addiction's in the corner doing push-ups, waiting for me to sit up. Right? There's a reason it's a cliche. And of course that thought came in, but almost immediately, just like the nearness of the presence of God was felt, like in those raw moments. Like, it's amazing how once you strip everything away and you're not seeing anything else that matters. Like when your child is is dead in your arms, and just the nearness of your higher power of God is right there, and thankfully because of that groundwork, no serious thought into turning away from my long sobriety journey. And part of it is I have too much to lose, right? Like, so when we first come in, and I don't know if you went to rehab too, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
They're always telling us, you got to get sober for you, right?
Right.
And you do. Like, at the core of it, it has to be, when you turn your will and your life over to the care of God, hopefully one of the byproducts of that is that renewed sense of self-esteem, like finding at least that small kernel of yourself inside that you respect and love and don't want to go away. But we can build up a lot of barriers around that too, to help us,
stay
be
motivated.
Yeah, because I'm not sober fully for my son and daughter, right? Like, I'm sober at the core of it for myself. But if I have a thought of like, hey, a shot of Jack sounds really good right now, if my first thought is I would never do that to Donnie and Eden, then great. Like, yeah, I'm not saying sober necessarily for them, but they're a barrier for it. I don't want to lose them. My son has never seen me loaded or drunk, Thankfully, I don't know how, he's never seen me smoke, I don't think. I just quit that a month ago.
So and he never saw?
8 years. I don't think so. Maybe.
I'm sure he smelled it.
Maybe. I didn't do it in the house with him, or anything. Yeah. I don't know.
But you do it only at work?
Yeah, work in the car. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that's been a whole journey of itself too. So like I said, like, it's not like, God flipped a switch and I'm, all better all of a sudden. I finally said, I think I've been trying to quit off and on since I started, because I would go to you with that sometimes, Adam. And I finally set a quit date for my sober date this year, so I can remember it. And this sober date was actually a big one too, because my first drink was my 18th birthday, which was July 5th, 2009. And I got sober February 6th, 2017. So just I have 8 years run time, and then I hit 8 years sobriety this time. So I had more sobriety time than I did running. And I was like, okay, I'm kicking this nicotine thing now. And like with alcohol too, it was, I'm going to stop doing this on my own, and I'm just going to fully, pray and actually bring other people into this, just like we do in recovery. So instead of just like holding it on to myself, I went up to the random guy who I had never talked for at church, who's up there for like the prayer time, and went and told him, and was vulnerable with like how sinful I was being with that, and got prayer for it. And it's still like a struggle, I want that little nicotine packy there right now, but I'm not going to have it, So, yeah.
That's awesome. So what's life looking like today? You still work in treatment, but not...
Yeah, so I work for a company that it's primarily a billing company. We're branching out into some other fields. I'll keep it a little vague, but basically our clients because we're a startup, and we're working on some tech that might be in competition with other companies. So, but our clients are detoxes and treatment centers and stuff like that. So I don't work with the actual clients anymore, although I am extremely grateful for the time I spent with the clients working in the detox houses with all that. Each and every one of you guys, if any of you guys hear this and recognize me, like, you guys helped me in your own way, even if you totally, came in and were the guy who tried to fight me to get your keys out of the safe and then walked off property and then broke in later that night. You know who you are.
That was pretty specific.
Yeah, you know who you are. And even you helped me in my recovery, and I hope you're doing well, man. But yeah, so when I came into the rooms, like AA, they told me I would have a life beyond my wildest dreams, and this is what I shared to the guys when I left Serenity. I spoke in that meeting the night before I went down the mountain, and they told me I would have the life beyond my wildest dreams, right? And when I came into the room, what I thought that meant was I'm gonna have the nice job, I'm gonna have the job, the girl, the house, the car, all that, like all my worldly things that I want are going to be mine as long as I get sober and stay sober. But that's not, that was my dream. That's what I could dream. That wasn't beyond my wildest dreams. That was my actual dream. Now I do have the girl, but, and I actually did pay off my car finally too. So I got my car too. Little Nissan Versa. Let's go. No, but what they meant was the life beyond my wildest dreams. And what that was, a woman with a son choosing me to be her husband, choosing me to be allowed in this boy's life, and then marrying me and having more kids with me, people, trusting me as friends, people, asking me to be immense parts of their lives. And a life, just full of, the love of others around me, like people. I can't even put it into words, honestly, but that's what they meant by the life beyond my wildest dreams. The things that I literally, if you had told me on day one, like, hey, go look in the mirror, and I mean, I looked like I was, I shaved my hair and my beard off before I came, so I looked like, I was a skinhead. And like, I looked like I was ready to go in the Orange County jail for sure. If you had told me to go look in the mirror and say, hey, in a little bit, someone's going to come along and ask you to be the father for their children, I would have told you, no, man, you're full of it. Like, there's no way anyone would want me like that. But that's exactly what happened. Yeah. And
hell yeah.
That is the hope that we have, right? The things are nice. Like, we have, but okay, sorry, I'm gonna get on Jesus is my higher power for a second. But God promises us that He'll clothe us and feed us. And that's in the book of Matthew. And He says, aren't you more valuable than like the birds of the sea and the birds of the air and the fish of the sea? And I clothe them and feed them. Won't I do the same for you? And there hasn't been a day without food. There hasn't been a day without a roof over my head. There's days where we weren't necessarily sure where those were going to come from. I know you've been there, Adam. I'm sure you've been there too, Mike. And anything beyond that is just a blessing. Being here doing this is a blessing. I'm having a great time. I'm sure I'm talking a lot. I'm having a blast doing this. This is awesome. I get to drive out here, leave my 34-week pregnant wife at home with my 2 kids, and come do this podcast. And I'm so blessed to do this. And thank you guys for putting stuff on like this too, because like we say in recovery, like when I speak, when I go share at a meeting, I'm getting way more out of that than the guys listening to me, So like, you guys listening to this, I hope you guys get something out of this. I hope you hear this and can say, now is the time to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Like, you're not going to be able to get sober without God. So just start praying, but I'm getting more out of this just by being on and speaking about it. Like, it's great to do this. I haven't, like we said at the beginning, I'm pretty much just in church now. I'm not really doing AA anymore. Nothing against AA. Please go to AA. I love AA.
Or NA.
Or NA. Yeah.
One of the A's.
One of the A's. A's.
Maybe not CMA. No, I'm kidding. Go to any of the A's.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. What does your support system look like? Are you involved in like a men's Bible study? Like, what does that look like for you on a weekly basis?
Yeah, so it has changed recently. We did leave our our old church, and I did have some support there. There was a recovery group going there, but I'm not even fully sure what happened, but it kind of disappeared. We were at a mega church. And there's always some political stuff going on with that. So we just started going to new church this year, and I'm sure those guys will probably listen to this podcast. But we've been really brought into that family. I've like for the first time, gotten prayer for some of these things from other men. We're already in like a midweek couples group, and then, I do lean on my wife. Like I am open with her. She's my best friend with my recovery and stuff like that. Yeah. She's, not my like primary support, but yeah, I have, friends in the program. I work with people in the program every day. And then, my primary support is God too, every day. Like,
Amen.
I still, not as much every day anymore, but I still get up and get on my knees and say the church set prayer in the morning, even if I don't go to a meeting. I love that prayer.
I was talking to someone the other day, and like for me, God, right, Jesus Christ, right, like knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He knew that he needed to drop me off in the front of a Narcotics Anonymous meeting because he knew that this was going to be the program to help me be back introduced to a God of my understanding, bro. You know what I mean? And like, and that's what it took for me, bro. It took for me to come to a spiritual, not religious program, right? It took me to be around other people who had their own belief systems, right? Where I could start to create and form. And the most important thing, bro, for me to start letting go of the resentments that I had towards God, for me to kind of move past that so that, so that I can have a deeper relationship with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to read a Bible verse for you, Adam. Sorry, we're getting.
It's okay. No, it's
we're
cool.
getting
It's perfect,
spiritual.
bro.
This is my time, and I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
All right. This is from Psalm 139, starting at verse 13. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. And what David's saying there is that God knew all this stuff when he made you, when he made you, when he made me. And he knew that we would be out there running for days, putting our mothers through hell, while they sat at home. Mine was praying. I don't know what you guys are doing. I don't know your guys' stories. I'm sure, all of them were praying for their sons. They knew the women that we would put through just horrible relationships with, the people that would get hurt along the way. And he still made us. He still created us. And, he still gave us life in this earth. And hopefully it's for moments like these.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, Chris.
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you
Chris,
guys.
for coming out here.
Really
I didn't know
appreciate
you were driving as far, but we appreciate it.
Just Long Beach. It's nice. Yeah.
Little road therapy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
I got one question for you, Chris, before we go. If there was one piece of advice you could give to somebody out there struggling, maybe has some similarities to your story, what would you tell them if you could tell them right now?
I just tell them to pray. Like if you think you have a problem, just start with praying and then go to a meeting.
Yeah.
Like if you think you have a problem, even if you think you don't, just go to a meeting. Maybe find if you can a speaker meeting, and go and just hear someone's
listen.
like 45-minute story, and look for the similarities, right? Not the differences. Or even just go, But yeah, you're not going to be able to get this on your own. None of us were God. We all have worked the steps here, right? And we start with giving our will over to God, and then cleaning house, right? And that starts with just opening a line of communication. Even if you don't believe in one, like
Yeah.
All of us are testaments here. The entire brotherhood and fellowship of AA is testaments of higher powers existing out there, you know. So, yeah, I hope you're able to do that.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for coming on, bro. I love you. Thanks
you
for taking
too.
the drive.
Yeah.
Amazing story. I think this is really good. We kind of been wanting an episode like this.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
we actually brought some people that have like a Christianity background, and it wasn't really spoken about. So we appreciate, you know, you coming on, because this isn't a meeting. This is your story, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And whatever's important to you that needs to be shared is what's important to you that needs to be shared, bro.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
we really appreciate you, and it goes to show that like not everybody recovers the same. You know what I'm saying? People find their own paths and their own ways of doing things, and what works for you might not work for me, and what works for me might not work for you, and you know, but yeah, I'm just very grateful, bro, to have you on. If you guys go ahead and please comment, subscribe, like this. Make sure you guys share with anybody who you think might need to hear Chris's story, and be sure to follow us on TikTok and IG. And both of them are at the Messages of Hope podcast _, between each word.
All right, we'll see you next week.
But you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes.
As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you, and take you out forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.